Adaptimmune is at the leading edge of the cell therapy revolution in cancer. We're particularly focused on solid tumors, which represent the vast majority of the cancer burden worldwide. And we are focused on cell therapies for solid tumors. To create true value for patients and for the company, we need to bring products to market that transform the lives of patients. And we believe we're on the verge of doing that with ADP-A2M4, now known as afami-cel, for synovialsarcoma. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how we're going to get there and the milestones along the way, with cell therapies in the clinic and on the market, treating an increasing number of patients. I'll also touch on the unique capabilities that we've built to enable us to achieve these goals. For those of you who don't know us very well, our original technology, which is over on the left-hand side at the bottom of the slide, is based around the ability to engineer high affinity T-cell receptors. These are the receptors that T-cells normally use to identify what to attack. And we engineer them so that they can recognize cancer targets. In the past 5 years since our IPO, we've built a cell therapy company to discover, develop, and deliver cell therapies based on this technology. And it's a company built not just to house a technology or a pipeline, but to be a business as well. We went from having one T-cell receptor T-cell in the clinic a few years ago, which is NY-ESO, which is now in hands of GSK, to having 3 wholly owned assets in several clinical trials across multiple solid tumor types. And it's these treatments that I'm going to be talking to you about today. Now, at the beginning of 2021, I can say this, next year, we intend to launch afami-cel, our first commercial product in the United States. It'll be the first engineered TCR T-cell therapy on the market, and either the first or second T-cell therapy for a solid tumor, period. As well as synovialsarcoma, we've also shown responses in 5 additional solid tumor types. And 3 months ago, during our Investor Day, I laid out plans to deliver transformative value for patients and for investors over the course of the next 5 years. This is our 2252 plan. In concrete terms, it means 2 products on the market targeting MAGE-A4, 2 additional BLAs for our clinical pipeline, as well as 5 autologous and 2 allogeneic products entering the clinic in the next 5 years, all based on an integrated cell therapy company with the intent and the capabilities to discover, develop, and deliver products that are both curative and mainstream. We have our own in-house cell and vector manufacturing, our own process development, translational sciences, clinical and commercial teams, all entirely specific and dedicated to the needs of a cell therapy company. This enables us to innovate and improve at the pace of cell therapy. And this is the foundation of our success, and we believe it is a hallmark of successful companies in the cell therapy space. Our pipeline consists of T-cell therapies against 2 targets, MAGE-A4 and AFP. MAGE-A4 is present in a broad range of tumors, including some sarcomas, lung, bladder, head and neck, ovarian, gastroesophageal cancers. AFP is presented on liver cancer, and in fact can be diagnostic for liver cancer. We're enrolling and treating patients in all of the early phase trials with each of the 3 wholly owned therapies to identify indications where we can drive for registration. And this is shown most significantly in our phase 1 SURPASS trial, which is recruiting patients in gastroesophageal, head and neck, lung, and bladder cancer. On the top right-hand side of this slide, our first registrational phase 2 trial, SPEARHEAD-1, which, despite the pandemic, we completed enrollment for last year in about 12 months. And this will support registration and commercialization of afami-cel in the US in synovialsarcoma next year. Synovialsarcoma is a devastating cancer. It may be a small and rare indication, but the impact of that, the fact that only 2,500 patients each year in the US and the EU are diagnosed with this, means that it's very unlikely that anybody who's diagnosed with synovialsarcoma has ever heard about it before. they almost certainly won't know anybody else who has it or has been treated for it. As such, it can be incredibly lonely and isolating to have such a rare tumor. Sometimes patients are diagnosed with local resectable disease that can be subject to surgery. Surgery can be curative, but often is not and progresses. And if either that happens or you're diagnosed with metastatic disease, then you're treated with toxic chemotherapy regimen, normally the AIM regimen, ifosfamide and doxorubicin. This produces short-lived responses in most patients, but is rarely prolonged. In the second-line settings, after AIM, there are really few effective options, with response rates in the second-line setting characterized in the single digits or teens. And therefore, the patients are embarked on a difficult process with successive rounds of chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation to slow progress with few curative options. This places a massive burden on the patients and on their caregivers. And as well as the normal shock of being diagnosed with cancer, there's additional factors because the age of these patients is often younger than many cancer patients. And they're often in the prime of their life with families, and the knock-on impact on those families and their caregivers is profound. It's into this setting that Adaptimmune is developing afami-cel for synovialsarcoma. And these are data from our first generation afami-cel phase 1 trial in a cohort of 16 patients with synovialsarcoma, which was presented at CTOS last year. As you can see from the waterfall plot on the left, almost all of the patients appear to have received some benefit from the treatment. And in almost half those patients, this translated into a formal RECIST clinical response with an overall response rate of 44%. This is considerably better than available commercial therapies in the second-line setting. And we were also very encouraged in at least some of the responses. We see extended durability with the 2 patients shown on the right here, still in response at around 80 weeks. When you compare that to what these patients are currently experiencing with an unrelenting pattern of surgery and chemotherapy and radiotherapy versus a one-off treatment and the opportunity to gain long-term benefit after that one-off treatment and get back in many cases to something approaching normal life, you can understand why the synovialsarcoma community is incredibly excited about these data. And regulatory designations such as RMAT in the US and the PRIME designation in the EU will help us on our path to approval next year. Looking at the development plan going forward, we will shortly be treating our last patient in the 45-patient cohort of Spearhead-1 that we intend to be registrational. The data cutoff for this will therefore be later this year, and subject to the pre-submission meetings with the FDA and the MEA, we plan on filing the BLA next year, and we intend to seek approval for that and intend that approval will be granted next year. Subject to that, we will be launching in 2022. Sarcoma is the perfect size opportunity for this first commercial product. And it has the opportunity to transform the standard of care for patients in the second-line synovialsarcoma setting. But MAGE-A4 goes much further than sarcoma. We believe we're the first company to clinically validate MAGE-A4 as a target and believe it's a very significant cancer target. Beyond sarcoma, the opportunity for MAGE-A4 is substantial, with almost 100,000 patients in the EU and the US dying each year with cancers that express MAGE-A4 at significant levels. And after taking account of the fact that our clinical products target MAGE-A4 in the context of a particular HLA type, HLA-A2, the 40,000 patients that die each year that are HLA-A2 and have significant MAGE expression is a substantial opportunity. I'll touch later on what we're doing to go beyond HLA-A2 and address the needs of larger numbers of patients whose cancers also express MAGE-A4. But it's worth pointing out that MAGE-A4 can only really be targeted with a T-cell receptor. You can't get at it really with an antibody or a small molecule. And we're in the lead, therefore, against this newly validated, very significant cancer target, with the first indication on the market next year. And it's a very small group of companies that can be in this race. And we have reason to believe that our treatments can be effective across the range of cancers that express MAGE-A4. Beyond sarcoma, we've seen responses with our SPEAR T cells targeting MAGE-A4 in esophagogastric junction, in head and neck cancer, in lung cancer, and there've been meaningful tumor reductions in several other indications as well. On the left-hand side here, you can see the results from our treatment with the highest dose of our first generation ADP-A2M4 in patients with a range of different solid tumors. Of the 13 patients dosed, some saw tumor reductions, and we have partial responses in patients with lung and head and neck cancer. On the right-hand side, you can see data from our second generation program targeting MAGE-A4. From the dose escalation cohorts of this study, with 6 patients and 5 of the 6 showing tumor reductions. 2 of those 6 of those patients had confirmed responses. Now, 3 patients in this dose escalation cohort had esophageal or esophagogastric junction cancer, and all 3 showed tumor reductions, including 1 confirmed response. This is what has led to planning the phase 2 trial SURPASS-2 in esophageal cancers that will initiate by mid-year. Looking at the last 2 pillars of our 5-year core value drivers, we've focused our research towards therapies that enable us to treat more patients and achieve more durable responses, driving therapies that are both curative and mainstream. I want to highlight just a few items on our deep preclinical pipeline. Firstly, the next generation approaches with both MAGE-A4 and AFP on the top lines are designed to increase the depth and durability of responses. Secondly, the programs targeting broader HLA coverage for both MAGE-A4 and AFP, together with new cell therapies such as the next generation TIL candidate we're working on with CCIT, are designed to increase the number of patients that can receive our therapies. And lastly, but not least, the off-the-shelf or allogeneic platform derived from stem cells, where we have shown we can generate functional T cells from stem cells that kill cancer targets in vitro, is obviously an important opportunity to move cell therapy to a more mainstream position. We're funded into 2023 and equipped to deliver on what we believe are ambitious plans to put the TCR in the cancer revolution. 2021 is going to be a year of execution and delivery towards our first product approval next year, which will be an important milestone in the development of T-cell therapies to give hope to people with cancer, and it will be particularly exciting for people facing their battle with synovial sarcoma. Thank you.